Hello everyone. Today, we will dive into a touching story about love, sacrifice, and perseverance. Have you ever wondered how a romantic honeymoon could change in an instant? Can love be strong enough to overcome the toughest challenges? And when the hospital runs out of blood, will James be able to save Diep by donating his own blood? Will James' persistence by the bedside help Diep wake up and continue living, or will it be too late? If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button now so you don't miss out on more emotional and meaningful stories like this one. Let's explore this story together right now. James and Diep had planned their honeymoon for months. Every day, they discussed the destinations they would visit, the foods they would try, and the wonderful moments they would share. Finally, they chose a beautiful beach, with soft white sand and crystal clear blue water, inviting lovers to immerse themselves in happiness. It was the place where they would begin their new life, full of hope and dreams. The first day there was perfect. They walked hand in hand along the beach, feeling the cool breeze brushing against them. The sun set on the horizon, turning the sky golden, creating a romantic and peaceful atmosphere. Diep leaned her head on James' shoulder, her eyes sparkling with joy. She shared her dreams for the future with him, the days they would spend together. James, with a bright smile, promised to always be by her side, no matter what happened. They continued their adventure on the second day, when Diep suggested they try a thrilling water sport near the beach. Although James was a bit hesitant, the excitement in Diep's eyes made it impossible for him to refuse. They both joined in the game of surfing, full of joy and energy. No one expected that something terrible would happen in the blink of an eye. While playing, Diep suddenly tripped as she was running on a slippery rock. Her foot slipped off the rock, her body lost balance, and she fell hard onto a sharp cliff. Her scream echoed in the quiet beach, shocking James. He rushed over, his heart stopping when he saw the serious injury on Diep's body, blood pouring out uncontrollably. James shouted in panic, rushing into action without thinking. He picked her up and ran to the waiting ambulance. In that moment, everything seemed to spin around him, and all that remained was fear and worry. He couldn't believe that, in just a few short seconds, their happiness had been shattered by such a devastating blow. At the hospital, though it had all the necessary medical equipment, the situation was even more difficult due to the emergency. The doctors quickly brought Diep into the emergency room, but her condition was very critical. She had lost too much blood, and the hospital didn't have enough blood to transfuse into her. Everyone in the emergency room fell silent, the stillness overwhelming the space, with only the sound of machines and James' heartbeat echoing. James stood outside the emergency room, feeling as though his entire world had collapsed beneath him. He couldn't believe that their honeymoon, the most wonderful moment of their lives, had ended in pain and confusion. His hand, once holding Diep's gently, now felt empty. Would their love be strong enough to overcome this challenge, to bring her back, to return her to him, as they had once dreamed? Diep was rushed to the hospital, anxiety and tension filled the air. The doctors immediately recognized that her condition was critical. Despite their efforts to control the bleeding and stop the blood loss, Diep's blood continued to pour out. Her eyes grew dim, and life seemed to be slipping away from her body. She's losing too much blood. If we don't transfuse, we won't be able to save her, one doctor said, his face filled with concern as he looked at the readings on the machine. The emergency room fell silent, the only sounds being the beeping of machines and the hurried footsteps of nurses rushing back and forth. Another doctor, glancing at the clock, urgently called out, "We need O-negative blood, immediately. Get the blood supply, now." But the growing worry turned into despair when the response came from the blood storage room. "We don't have enough O-negative blood left. There's only a little, not enough for someone who's lost this much blood." The weight of despair began to settle on everyone in the room. Diep lay there, weak and unresponsive. Time seemed to stop, and the doctor's efforts grew increasingly futile as her blood continued to drain from her body. Every passing second felt like a battle between life and death that Diep was unaware of. James stood outside the emergency room, his hands clenched tightly, his eyes never leaving the door. His heart sank as he watched the doctor's frantic actions, unable to help, unable to understand how things had spiraled so quickly. The sense of helplessness tightened around him, leaving him breathless, unable to comprehend how this could happen on what should have been a joyful trip. All he could think was, if there's no blood, she won't make it. I have to do something. He saw the futile efforts of the doctors and realized that the only way to save her was to rely on himself. But could this really be the one thing that could bring her back from the brink of death? The situation in the emergency room was becoming increasingly dire. Diep, after the tragic accident, was fighting for her life, with each passing second feeling like a battle. Her blood continued to flow, and despite the doctor's best efforts, they couldn't seem to get the situation under control. Her body was too weak, and she had lost so much blood that every hope seemed as fragile as a thread. The hospital reported that the O-negative blood supply was nearly gone, and Diep's condition was so critical that there was no time to wait for more. James stood there, watching the futile efforts of the medical team, his heart aching with fear and helplessness. He couldn't accept the thought of losing her. Diep was not just his beloved wife, she was his companion, the one he had dedicated his life to love and care for. As the doctors continued to search for a solution, James suddenly heard a voice that struck him like a lightning bolt. A doctor rushed to him, her eyes filled with urgency. "James, we need more blood, but we don't have enough. If you're willing to try, your blood type might match hers. This could be our only chance." James didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately nodded, determined not to let anything stop him. He wasn't concerned about the pain or fear, all he could think about was one thing: I have to save her. He walked over to the blood collection area, ready for the quick test. Each second felt like an eternity, but in that moment, everything in the world faded away, leaving only thoughts of Diep. He couldn't lose her, he couldn't let their shared dreams be shattered by an unexpected tragedy. He silently promised himself, she will survive. I'll do whatever it takes. The test results came in quickly. James' blood type was a perfect match for Diep's. A sense of relief washed over him, but the worry still lingered. Without hesitation, he agreed to donate. The medical team swiftly prepared for the transfusion, and within moments, everything was set. As his blood began to flow into Diep's body, James felt a strange connection. It was as if a part of his own life was being transferred to her, helping her fight through these critical moments. His heart raced as his eyes stayed fixed on her pale face. Every drop of his blood felt like a promise. He would never give up on her, no matter the difficulty. James' sacrifice was not just an act of saving her life, it was a symbol of the unconditional love he had for Diep. In that moment, he believed that no matter what happened in the world, as long as he had the strength, he would always protect her. Hope was born from his sacrifice, and James believed that his love would bring her back from the brink of death. After the blood transfusion, James felt as though he were bound to that hospital bed. He couldn't leave her, he couldn't bear a single moment without being by her side. Despite the nightmare of the past few days, James kept his faith that his love for Diep would be the driving force to help her overcome this critical situation. He sat there, by her bedside every day, holding her hand, his fingers gently brushing against her cold hand, hoping for any sign, no matter how small, that she would wake up. The hospital was not just a place of pain, it was where James' love was being tested. The constant beeping of machines, the hurried footsteps of nurses and doctors, did not distract him. His gaze never left Diep's pale face, her eyes closed, unmoving, as if time itself had stopped for her. With each passing day, James grew more anxious as he saw no change in her condition. The feeling of despair slowly crept into his heart, but he knew that as long as she opened her eyes, everything would be okay again. Every morning, James arrived at the hospital early, bringing small gifts like fresh flowers, love letters written hastily, and funny stories that he had prepared to tell her. He knew she couldn't hear him, but he wanted her to feel that he was still by her side, never leaving. He spoke to her about the sweet memories they had shared, about the times they laughed together, and their dreams for the future. Each story, each word from James was filled with longing and hope that one day, she would wake up and smile at him like she always had. During the long, quiet nights when the hospital had quieted down and everyone else had gone to sleep, James stayed by her side. He sat there, silently, with only the sound of Diep's steady breathing and his own heart beating in his chest. Sometimes, tears would unknowingly fall from his eyes, but he didn't mind. He believed that each tear, each dried hope, was another force driving Diep to continue fighting. James' love for Diep was not a simple or calm affection. It was a strong, enduring love, a love that fought against adversity, a love that would never give up. Each moment spent by her bedside, whether it was a small joy or a deep worry, made James feel that he and Diep were going through this challenge together, and that one day, she would wake up, just like the sunlight breaking through the long dark night. He still believed that with love, nothing was impossible.
Bài thơ đồng chí Quê hương anh nước mặn đồng chua, làng tôi nghèo đất cải nên sỏi đá. Anh với tôi đôi người xa lạ, tự phương trời chẳng hẹn quen nhau. Súng bên súng đầu sát bên đầu, đêm rét chung chăn thành đôi tri kỷ. Đồng chí, ruộng nương anh gửi bạn thân cải, gian nhà không mặc kệ gió lung lay. Giếng nước gốc đa nhớ người ra nính, anh với tôi biết từng cơn ớn lạnh. Sốt run người vầng trán ướt mồ hôi, áo anh rách vai, quần tôi có vài mảnh vá. Miệng cười buốt giá, chân không giày, thương nhau tay nắm lấy bàn tay. Đêm nay rừng hoang sương muối, đứng cạnh bên nhau chờ giặc tới, đầu súng trong treo. Bài thơ Đồng Chí được sáng tác vào đầu năm 1948, sau khi tác giả đã cùng đồng đội tham gia vào chiến đấu trong chiến dịch Việt Bắc Thu Đông năm 1947, đánh bại cuộc tổng tiến công quy mô lớn của giặc Pháp lên chiến khu Việt Bắc. Bài thơ là một trong những tác phẩm tiêu biểu nhất về người lính cách mạng và văn học kháng chiến chống Pháp từ năm 1946 đến năm 1954.